In this step, we are going to see how the Molo clashes ended up in Parliament. Since a lot of people died in Molo, several times the Molo issue was discussed in the Parliament. So I'm only giving one, which is very prominent and also very unique. There is one day I was working in Nakuru as a desk officer at the Provincial Special Branch Office in charge of criminal activities and intertribal tension. I found myself one day, being on the desk, writing reports throughout and whatever. There are times you feel like walking. Or there even sometimes you read reports and before you write to Nyati House, you ask yourself what this person, you try to imagine how the person on the ground, the handler who wrote the report must have been thinking. So you decide just to stroll. You just stroll, and those years, policemen were very low educational quality. So there are occasions you could read a report and then start strolling and ask yourself, there are occasions in 90% of the occasions we just knew handlers through their writing, through their flow of information, through their thinking, so we could reason like them without even knowing them by face. On a few occasions, you could take an RT, radio telephone, call the district and say you want to talk to the handler. So in some cases you even knew his or her voice. But meeting the people, maybe meeting the handler, you may not know the handler personally. So there are those occasions you could just stroll in town or just sit in the park, Uhuru Park, and try to think what this person meant. After deciding, you go back to the office and write what you think the person intended to write in a good, clear English. So maybe it was one of those occasions when I was walking, and then there is a roundabout near a petrol station, near the railway station in Nakuru, where I met John Njenga Mungai, the then Member of Parliament for Molo. Molo has been subdivided into so many constituencies. So he was the MP for the larger Molo. When I met him, he was very emotional. He was shaking with anger. He was like somebody who could beat you up at the slightest provocation. Knowing that I was a senior police officer and he knew me as such, I was not afraid. He turned to me, kijana yangu, kwa nini unafukuza bibi ya kwanza? Unaoa bibi ya pili. Alafu wewe na bibi yako ya then bibi yako ya pili na watoto wako wanaanza kuua watoto wa bibi ya kwanza. Huu ni ungwana kweli? By then, I had differed with my first wife. I had not yet known the current wife. So I was in my second bachelorhood or singlehood. So I tried to think maybe he was meaning me or anything, but it didn't make sense. So after a long talk, that is when he told me that how can the government use its military to train Kalenjin youths to kill Kikuyu youths. I was confused. He took me to Lion's Place. There are some cement benches there. We sat down, we discussed for a long time. We discussed, and he told me. I said, leave that one to me. I then went to see Mr. Mugweru. Mr. Mugweru was a senior superintendent of police, but the overall in charge of desk officers. I went and discussed with him. Mr. This is a case where you're trying to teach somebody who knows more than you do. So Mr. Mugweru told me he was aware of what was happening, and that I should bring the issue up during the morning, after the AOB in the morning call-up, provincial morning call-up. And he instructed me not to tell anybody, because the members of inspectorate, Kina Okelo, Godho Kinyanjui, Chanzo and others, if they hear it first before we ambush the provincials, it will have already been known. So he told me to keep quiet. The following day, immediately after morning call-up, and when we were being asked for AOB, I then told Mr. Okemwa, the provincial special branch officer, senior assistant commissioner. As I said, that provincial morning call-ups are conducted in the presence of a district, the home district, like Kakamega, Nyanza, the Kisumu district special branch officer would attend the Nyanza provincial. Or the Garissa, one would attend the northeastern morning call-up. So when I talked, Mr. Rono, superintendent of police, who was the district security intelligence officer in Nakuru, jumped up and said, sir, we had heard those rumors, we had investigated, and we found them to be E6. E6 is the most useless report, which you are not even supposed to think about it. And the report had been said that at Menengai crater, members of the GSU were training Kalenjin youths in the use of firearm. So when I said so, and he interjected that way, Mr. Mugweru interjected and said, yeah, he knows the place, and even gave the bearing. Remember, Honorable Njenga had not even told me the bearing of the places, but this one said where it was and whatever. A funny thing, Rono was a superintendent of police, Mugweru was a senior superintendent of police. But Rono dressed down Mr. Mugweru. Said, the next time you hear such an unfounded allegations, come to my office, take an IR form, fill in. Which was also not procedural, because desk officers, we were not supposed. We could write our own from the province, and it was up to the PSIO, provincial boss, to tell the district intelligence officer affected. There was tension, and the usual mob, the fourth estate, Kina Chanzu, Okelo, Godho, interjected, and it became a shouting match. That is when Mr. Okemwa, Senior Assistant Commissioner of Police, ordered that I and Senior Superintendent Mugweru make an amalgamated report, and he immediately instructed Mr. Rono to go and have a special district security committee meeting to discuss about that issue. And he said, meanwhile, with the provincial security committee, we will meet and instruct you that. So the emergency provincial security committee, the emergency district committee, the emergency district committee forwarded askaris to the site, and they found nobody there. But the non-Kalenjin askaris who were there, who participated in the security, came back and said that there was telltale signs of people who had moved out vehicles, punctured the ground, showing that there were tents there, and so on. Showed that already people had been there, and the 3 or 4 hours preparing these people, somebody had already gone and told them to move out. A few days later, I met Honorable John Njenga Mungai, and the same place, Lion's Place, and told him that the people are not found, but good enough, these people, we had scattered them. If they regroup elsewhere, at least we have disturbed them. Then Honorable John Njenga Mungai looked at me and said, "Munafikiri nyinyi ni werevu." I thought the story had ended there. So a week later, he made a statement in Parliament where he asked the Minister for Internal Security why security officers were being used to train Kalenjins. He didn't use the word Kalenjin, he said to train youths from one particular tribe. You know, when you are ambushed, you make mistakes. So the Minister for Internal Security said, no. What actually is happening is that we are providing vehicles to youths who are going through initiation period. And then John Njenga Mungai turned to him and said, since when was the government's vehicles used, GK lorries used for initiation? And why don't you use all tribes? Because we have 1 or 2 tribes which don't undergo initiation. Why don't you use in the other tribes? And then what happens to tribes which don't go through such initiations? Because you are using government facilities over certain tribes and not others. But then John Njenga Mungai had gotten what he wanted. The whole thing was in the front page of newspapers the following day. And that is how I assisted, or I played a part in having security personnel scattered who were training Kalenjin youths. Thank you.